Yes, thank you, Suri. Thank you, Mail, for inviting me because I have been quite interested on this subject, especially the way the Sri Lankans have voted this time. A lot of people have described this, the outcome of August 15 many different ways. But I see it as the Brexit vote, or let's say the 2016 US elections, and the rise of anti-immigrant parties in Europe, nationalist parties in Europe. Having said that, it's good to make a comparison of the results of 2020 with 2015 and briefly with 2010. Because 2010, the presidential election and the parliamentary election was just after the war was won. I'm sorry if I say the war was won, it may offend certain people, but you know, in the Sri Lankan psyche, it is about defeating the enemy, and it was victory for the entire population. So in the aftermath of 2009, people gave a decisive vote. That was also another landslide because they saw Mahinda Rajapaksa as the war president. So he actually won decisively in 2010 as well. He got 57% and his opponent, General Sarath Fonseca, got 40%. And even at the general election subsequently in 2010, the UPFA, that was led by Mahinda Rajapaksa, won 60%, and the UNP won 29%. So fast forward to 2015, things changed. So then came this new wave of good governance, because I think Mahinda Rajapaksa government became very confident after their victory. There was this sense of being invincible, let's say. I mean, that happens to a lot of people in power. So then there are issues of corruption and other. I don't want to go in because some of these allegations are very sort of controversial and may not have been, you know, I mean, nothing has been proven, but these have been in the public discourse. So then came this good governance in 2015. So in that the UNP having, I mean, successively lost presidential elections and not having a charismatic leader to field, borrowed from the SLFP, if I may say so, from another old party, Maithripala Sirisena. So he went against his own president and won. So 2015, the presidential election, Maithripala Sirisena won 51% and Mahinda Rajapaksa won 47%. So now, fast forward again to 2020, this has all changed. So it's good to see. Now we know the results of the presidential election. Gotabaya Rajapaksa in 2019 won handsomely, more than what was expected. And Sajith Premadasa also did fairly well. He got, Sajith Premadasa got, Gotabaya Rajapaksa got 69% and Sajith Premadasa got 54%. Yes, 42% of the votes. So anyway, Gotabaya Rajapaksa was expected to win. So now, generally the trend has been the party that wins the candidate from the party that wins the presidential election will go on to win the parliamentary election as well. That's what we have seen. So it happened in 2010, 2015 and 2020. But the results of 2020 surprised me. I think even the Rajapaksa clan didn't expect to win so much. So finally, there has been a lot of analysis and people have been talking, you know, this is a 1956 moment of Sinhala Buddhist revival. And I think, yes, to a certain extent it has been. Because when in 1978, when President J.R. Jayawardena came up with this new constitution, the premise was you get a majority of the minority and a minority of the majority, and that will make you invincible. But this time we have seen that it is not so. So given the time limitation, I want to take you through a quick comparison of the districts, because this time you will see that when I say the south, it is not the deep south, not just the southern districts. It's the Sinhala Buddhist south, which also includes parts of Colombo and of course Munaragala, Hambantota, Goal, Matara. Some of these districts have a confluence of minority groups as well. But if we see the overwhelming support that the Sinhala majority has given is impressive. At the same time, it is also good to note that some of the predominantly Catholic areas, you will notice in some of the electorates, the Sinhala votes have shifted in favor of the SLPP. That is in favor of the Mahinda Rajapaksa, Gotabaya Rajapaksa-led SLPP. So now in Colombo district, the UNP always took pride in saying, the Grand Old Party, that Colombo was the heart of UNP. But this time, Colombo, the SLPP won handsomely, 57%. So here the SJB, I take it as the breakaway group of the UNP. So which means that majority of the UNP voters gravitated towards the SJB. But SJB was able to win only 32.73% in Colombo. But often the allegation or what the Sinhala Buddhists have often, including the politicians, have accused the UNP of relying on minority votes to come into power. So that has been a grievance and an accusation, because that shows that the UNP has always been pandering to the whims and the demands of minority parties, aka communal parties, let's say, and also extremist groups. So if you take the Colombo North, Colombo Central, Colombo East, Colombo West, which has a confluence of minority groups, in 2015, the UNP, or it was the Good Governance government, won handsomely. Like Colombo North, it was 80%, Colombo Central 84%, Colombo East 65%, Colombo West 80%, whereas the UPFA in 2015 was able to secure in the Colombo North only 16%, Colombo Central 12%, Colombo East 26%, Colombo West 15%. But today, but in comparison, take the predominantly Sinhala Buddhist electorates of Colombo, Kaduwela, Avisawela, Homagama, Maharagama, Casbah. They are all predominantly Sinhala Buddhist. They have always had dominance. But in 2015, UNP was somewhat close to UPFA. That was the Rajapaksa-led alliance then. But see, in 2020, very poor, because Kaduwela, SLPP won by 70%, Avisawela 67%, Homagama 72%, Maharagama 68%, Casbah 70%. Look, SJB in comparison, Kaduwela 18%, Avisawela 23%, Homagama 17%, Maharagama 19%, and Casbah 18%. So you see the difference. You see that from 40-odd%, 50-odd%, the pro-Rajapaksa vote has gone up to 70% or more. So you can see that the votes have increased. So which means the earlier votes that went to the UNP probably has gone to the SLPP this time. So it could be Sinhala. We could deduce that it could be Sinhala Buddhist votes. So now, if I may go focus on the Catholic votes, Sinhala Catholic votes. We have predominantly Sinhala Catholic electorates in the Gampaha district, which is another district in the Western province. So Negombo and Jayala, two predominantly Catholic electorates that I have taken. So this is in the aftermath of the April 21st attacks. So now in 2015, the UNP won 67% in Negombo and in Jayala 49%. That is in comparison to the UPFA winning 26% in Igambo and 41% in Jala. Today, in 2020, the SLPA in Igambo has won 52% of the votes, and in Jala, 64% of the votes. But the SJB has only won in Igambo, predominantly Catholic, 35%, Jala, again predominantly Catholic, 24%. Again, if I may go to the Putlam district, Vennapu, Chilau, they are also predominantly Catholic areas. See, in 2015, UNP won those electorates, 48%, 50. But today, Vennapu and Chilau, SLPP has won handsomely. Vennapu 67%, Chilau 61%. SJB has gone down to 24% in Vennapu and 25% in Chilau. So now, let's look at some of the other districts like Mathara. Mathara is the heart of one of the, if you say South, Mathara, Hambantota, they are the real, the heart of the South. They are the southern districts. But I also will look at Monoragala. That belongs to the Uva province, but it borders the southern province. So Mathara district has always been, like Hambantota, pro-Rajapaksa. So in 2015, UNP managed to win only 39% in Mathara. So if I take two Buddhist electorates, Kamburu, Pitiya, Devinuvara, UNP won 34%, 38% in 2015. But UPFA in 2015 won 52% in Mathara, the entire district. And in Kamburu, Pitiya, 57%, Devinuvara, 53%. Today, the SLPP, that is a former UPFA, in the district has won 73% of the vote. And in Kamburu Pitiya 78 and Devinuvara 73. SJB has come down to just 15% in the district, 12% in Kamburu Pitiya, 16% in Devinuvara. So Hambantota, the heart of the Rajapaksa kingdom, if I may say so. That's where they are revered and where they are like kings. So Hambantota was always Rajapaksa territory. So in 2015, UNP is 35%. That's where SISGIS electorate was earlier. But in 35%. But 53% was UPFA's percentage in 2015. Today, the SLPP won 75% of the votes in Hambantota. And the SJB was reduced to 13% in Hambantota. So I took two electorates again, Mulkirigala, Beliatta. So again, in 2015, UPFA won 56% and 53%. Today, they have increased their vote base in those electorates to 76% respectively. So Monaragala, I said, that is also a very predominantly Sinhala Buddhist district bordering Mathara. So they are also from 52% in 2015, UPFA, today the SLPP has won 74%. So Gaul district, if I may take Gaul district, the SLPP has won from, gone up from 50% in 2015 to 70%. Anuradhapura district, that's in the north central province, again Buddhist, but there is also again in Anuradhapura confluence of other communities. But again, see, from 48% in 2015 to 67% in 2020 by SLPP. Polonnaruwa, 43%, today 73% SLPP. While I'm not supposed to go through any of those northern or eastern provinces, it's interesting, like the gentleman who did the introduction said, there has been a shift in the vote from TNA, or we may call, they say ITEC, to other parties. Like for instance, take Vanni. Vanni in 2015, TNA won 70%. But in 2020, TNA won only 31%. In 2015, TNA won 54%. In 2020, it has come down to 33%. That is in the Bani district, TNA. So in Jaffna, TNA won 70% in 2015. Today, it is 31%. In Batticaloa, from 54% to 26% TNA. But look at the SLPP. SLPP in one knee from 12% has gone up to 20%. In Jaffna, the SLPP didn't shield the candidate. Instead, they had the SLFP, one of their constituent parties, which won 13.75%. That is, in 2015, it was just 5% for the UPFA. Digamadulla district, East, from 27%, SLPP has gone up to 32%. Trincomalee. Trincomalee, incidentally, was the only district that the SJB, Mr. Sajith Premadasale SJB won. So there, of course, the SJB has, in 2015, they had 46%. In 2020, it has come down to 40%. But in Trincomalee, if you take the Muttur electorate, which is predominantly Muslim, you will see that their vote base, the SJB support or UNP support has remained quite high. That is 64% in 2015. Today, it's 67% for SJB. So, Nuwara again, it is not my domain, but in 2015, the UNP or the Good Governance won 59%, and UPFL, Mahinda Rajapaksa's UPFL won only 38%. But today, SLPP, led by the Rajapaksas, has won 50% of the 54% of the vote, including the CWC. But in 2015, also the CWC was with the UPFA. The SJB has won only 31%. So we can see that there has been a shift in votes. Like Catholic votes were always seen predominantly as UNP. So there was this notion it may shift to SJB, it may have, but we can see that in predominantly Catholic electorate, it really hasn't. So having made this comparison, I want to focus on some of the objective factors that really led to this change in the southern vote. So sort of now when the Good Governance government won a majority of the Sinhala Buddhist votes in 2015, they were actually on thin ice, if I may say so. So in Sinhala Heartland, because they didn't win in 2015, the Good Governance government didn't win in the Sinhala Heartland areas, that is Hambantota, Matara and Monaragala and some other areas. They won in predominantly like the north and the east and some areas where there was a confluence of minority groups. So instead of being mindful of that weakness, the Good Governance government was very minoritarian in profile. That is now, let's say, the former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, for instance, appointed an expatriate to the post of governor of the central bank. That didn't go well with the majority. In addition, the ICTA, that is the Information Communication Technology, there too, a minority person was with a very, not a very good track record, alleged links to LTT was appointed. So, and also now the new constitution that was being documented, the Good Governance government dropped the definition of unitary in English and substituted it with Orumittanadu instead. So the perception among the Sinhala Buddhists and Sinhala Catholics of the Good Governance government was that it was representing the interests of minority groups such as the Muslims and the Tamils than theirs. So that was further buttressed by the fact that the Good Governance government began singing the national anthem in Tamil. So that was very sensitive, you know. I mean, in India, you sing the national anthem in Hindi, right? Am I right? So in Sri Lanka, throughout it was sung in Sinhala. Then suddenly the Good Governance regime started singing it in Tamil as well. So that
Jennifer ma'am, sorry to intervene.
yes.
Can you quickly wind up in another 5 minutes or so? Yeah, thank you.
Yes, sure. So added to this was the undermining of the military victory against the LTT in 2009. So what happened was post 2009, there was no decline in Tamil nationalism. So they were over assertive. Tamil nationalism was over assertive, and LTT sympathetic sections of the Tamil diaspora were in denial of the defeat. And there was funds pouring in, and there was sort of the Tamil political parties and politicians were resorting to a permanent political offensive. So they wanted to go beyond the 13th Amendment to devolve power. So, what did the Sinhala majority, what was their response? They, rather than supporting Tamil grievances and heading towards a negotiated political accommodation based on devolution, they wanted a unilateral imposition of a post-war order. So, in addition, there was another, it was I think, suicide. The good governance regime co-sponsored the UN resolution. So just imagine, they were ready to, pander to the demands of certain Western countries. So that was outright betrayal. So, and also the good governance regime undermined the military victory to such an extent that they were all they were persecuting, let's say, they were trying certain personnel, military personnel for alleged war crimes, and they were sort of harassing Sinhala Buddhists, especially the Rajapaksas. The majority saw that as a harassment of, their sort of war precedent. So it was, and they also saw that as a foreign conspiracy, as pandering to the demands of foreign governments. And the good governance regime refused to defend military personnel. Like, for instance, certain governments banned foreign travel for certain military personnel, and the government didn't do anything to defend them. So, what happened was the Sinhala Buddhists suspected that the good governance regime will gradually move towards dismantling the unitary state that the military fought for. So they severely undermined the security and intelligence apparatus. So that undermining we saw culminate in the April 21st attack. I have actually much more to say, because in the midst of all that, we see the Vilpattu National Park being cleared by a Muslim member of parliament, and Muslims being settled. And the Bodhubala Sena, that is a Buddhist organization led by monks, they really went to town exposing this and showing that how the Muslims were expanding through these communal parties and extremist groups. So that all those added to that, and also selling of assets like the Hampantota port, and then signing the memorandum of cooperation with India and Japan to develop the Colombo port's eastern terminal to India. So that people were not willing to do, they didn't want it given to India. They wanted it to be solely in the hands of Sri Lanka. So, so they saw the good governance regime as selling out the country, allowing minority extremist parties to hold sway. That way they were able to control minority political parties in government, and also, as I said earlier, the failure to act on intelligence on activities of Muslim fundamentalist groups in the country. So, which resulted in the tragedy on April 21st. So, and then corruption. The good governance regime came into power promising to bring in, take away corruption and establish corrupt-free government. But for the voter, it was not so much about not taking commissions and all that. It was in day-to-day activities, going to the government office and being able to do their work with ease. But the nail on the coffin was, as we all know, the central bank bond scam, which is of course a very complicated thing to explain. And of course, the Ranil Wickremesinghe regime, more the prime minister defending a corrupt governor. So there was corruption. So, and then in the aftermath of the April 21st, it was more obvious that the prime minister and the president were not together. They were not on the same page. So it demonstrated a colossal failure of economic stewardship and political leadership. People could see how inefficient, how ineffective they were pulling in different directions. The president didn't know what the prime minister was doing. The prime minister was not even invited for Security Council meetings. So that compromised the security of the country, with which the Rajapaksa-led UPFA government was able to secure. So people saw that how weak this government was. And following, more recently in 2020, with the new government coming in and the onset of COVID-19, Gotabaya Rajapaksa-led government showed that how well they were able to handle the pandemic. So, I mean, when Gotabaya Rajapaksa came on this platform of being a worker, being efficient, he wants things done. And he was able to prove it with the pandemic. People were impressed. So, so that was the objective factors on the ground, if I may say so, which led to a resurgence in Sinhala Buddhist votes. Of course, that was aided very well by retired military personnel, Buddhist monks, and of course, pro-Rajapaksa media. So that gave a lot of visibility to what was happening in the country. What the good governance regime was doing. So here was a president, here was a family that despite losing in 2015 had mass appeal. Because just after 2015, there was a rally that Mahinda Rajapaksa and the UPFA then organized in the suburbs. And it was packed, and like people were grieving. People were grieving and people were angry because people saw the 2015 victory of the good governance government as a foreign conspiracy aided by the Tamil diaspora, NGOs, and of course, the imperialist governments, pro-Western. You know, it was that really, that was well, I must say, it was well taken among the Buddhist, Sinhala Buddhist majority to show how much sovereignty had been compromised by the good governance government. And it also showed that the UNP-led government always relied on minority parties to hold power. So that was, so this was a moment where, like in 1956, 2010, the Sinhala Buddhist majority came together to show that they can elect a government of the majority by them so that their rights, their interests will not be compromised. And this is what they showed. They heeded Gotabaya Rajapaksa's call when he won the presidential election and when he was on the campaign trail for the general election. He said, give me a mandate. I will take the country forward. I will develop the country. So that's what they did. And now, if I may be given a little more time, rather than focusing on devolution, the president has said he wants to have a very pluralistic society and inclusive society. But rather than focusing on devolution, he wants to focus on development of the North. Because you see parties like the TNA, whose votes have come down, show that the people in the North are a bit fed up. I mean, I wouldn't say complete, because TNA is continuing to propagate this federalist solution. You know, that won't happen as long as the Sinhala majority doesn't agree. Any solution will be only if agreed by the Buddhist Sinhala majority. That is a reality that we all have to accept. So the TNA has been sort of flouting this and showing, I mean, this has been their mantra among the minority, among the Tamils. So is that what the minorities want? They suffered during the war. We all suffered. So what Gotabaya Rajapaksa in his manifesto has said is he wants to develop the North, development over devolution. Because the 13th Amendment has already devolved power to the provinces. But these Tamil parties are asking for more devolution. But that will not happen without majority consent. But Gotabaya Rajapaksa's strategy is that let's develop the country. Let's develop the country as one Sri Lanka, as a unitary state. So it's too early to say. We have just come in. Sorry, not we. They say we have just come in to power. And everyone's optimistic. Everyone's hoping because he is not a traditional politician, if I may say so. What they say is he's a military guy, but he won the war. He was, they call it Gota's war. His brother was the war president, but the war was Gota's. So they see how efficiently he managed the war and ended it, and how much after that as defense secretary and urban development under him, he was able to do a lot for the country. Of course, there are other things that happened, which I cannot speak about because they are too controversial, and the people have shown that they are not so bothered about, I'm sad to say, like corruption or other allegations. What they did this time was to come together as a majority to prove that they can appoint a majority government that they desire, who will have their interests at heart and not pander to minority parties that are very communal and are also supported and led by extremist groups. So this has been the ethos of the southern voter. So when I say southern, it's more to do with the predominantly sort of Sinhala Buddhist districts. So with that, I conclude my presentation, but I like to say something that Lord Naseby has said. He is the president of UK's all-party British Sri Lanka parliamentary group. So he, in the aftermath of the SLPP victory, had said that it's a fresh era and it's the opportunity for the country to come together and finally put to bed the idea of any Tamil Elam independence movement. So he has said that the international community, the West, the Human Rights Council, the UK government, factions of the Tamil diaspora must identify the sea change witnessed like never before in Sri Lanka. So that, I think, sums it all. It's a clear message how Sri Lanka should move forward from now on. It's early to say, we don't know. And when it comes to, if I may touch a little more on India and Sri Lanka,
Jennifer,
I think,
you can come back, later.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer ma'am, for your comprehensive presentation.